I was outlining some of the concepts a little bit as I was looking at doing it in one of our client projects. We've got like FileMaker errors, right, that we need to capture. Yeah, we've got script result, whether they're propagating up errors or the results that are coming up on the script that need to be captured so you can tell if there was an error further down in the call chain. And then, all of our dependent errors, right, like API call errors or other types of errors. And API errors are going to come back usually in sort of a standard flow for like a JSON response. So it's kind of helpful, but trying to come up and look at ways to handle those and keep them somewhat similar, right? So that if we handle errors in the same way that you generally handle errors with a JSON response, so that we're in that same space,
Mm-hmm.
then it's easily understood. You don't have like a specific way FileMaker is doing it, and then a specific way that all of the APIs handle their message and error responses. So trying to
You
coordinate
think
it.
you had some code we were going to maybe look at. Do you want to dive that's sort of related to that, right? You want to dive
Yeah.
into it a little bit? While Zandon's prepping that, does anybody have any error capturing gold nuggets that we didn't hit right there? Rules of thumb or best practices on use of the set error capture command. I one thing I don't think we hit real quick was just the criticality of where you call set error capture, that it really matters. You can easily lose the error message, the correct error code, if you don't have the set error capture script step in the correct location. Just a good
Yeah.
reminder.
Yeah, that's a good one. So in this particular one, this is go to related record, which is similar to a find, and then down further we do constraints, which is basically a find on top of what we've already found. So in this instance, when I go to related record, I need to, my error capture, I've turned it on. We go through, I've got some deterministic logic that's determining, if we're in a test mode, we want to show it to the user. If not, we're going to go to a blank layout to do these tasks, sort of stuff. Um, at this point, trying to block everything into an error handling section of code, right? So we know that we're expecting some sort of a response. We want to make sure that we're getting a zero error from FileMaker. So this is a FileMaker type of error that we might accept or get. And then we're going to determine whether or not we want to continue on, right? So how do you manage the error if you get an error? Do you want it to halt the script? Do you want it to do, we need to figure out like, how are we going to manage it? What conditional logic are we going to use based on the type of error that it is? And so in this instance where it's a find, right, I'm not going to continue if I can't get, if I get an error trying to go to related record. And then if we can continue, and I like the continue process, there's others, people might use for flagging, but
I like continue. I sometimes use the variable $go, you know.
go.
But yeah, I like those kind of verb based active verb. Can I keep going? I like that kind of variable naming.
Yeah, it's super clear. So, in this next block, right, if we get a continue, we can continue on. If not, we've got that error and we can treat the error. But then handling the error, so even though we got the error, handling the result as the error kind of at the bottom of the script. And that's where we would normally want to do, if we're going to exit the script, we don't want to exit prematurely in the middle of the code. We want to handle all of that at the bottom, so we're not searching through a whole bunch of litany of code to find, oh, it jumped out here or it jumped out there. We want to know where it's at. So anyway, we just, can we continue? If not, then we've set our error and our error detail. This error detail is only available for certain types of scripts. So error detail isn't always going to respond with the last error detail, but when it, I've just been putting it in because I can capture it in the custom dialog and so on and so forth. I forget which ones it's actually useful for, but it doesn't show up for the, I don't believe it shows up in the find one.
Nice to have it standardized.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do. Exactly. So here we do another find, right, constrain, do another set of error capture on that constraint to see, did I suddenly lose all my records, right? Am I going to get a 101 or a 401, or what's my response going to be? So I capture those, and I'm going to determine at that point, if it's 401, that's okay, but we need to handle a 401 differently. If we get no error, then we can just blindly continue. And then, so now I'm moving into the next phase. And this is where it gets a little, this is where you could start to go crazy. Like, how deep do we want to go? So yeah, and then this next section of my error handling, this is where I'm starting to determine for the result that I'm going to pass out before I end the script. If it's 401 or a 101, right, I'm going to say that I'm going to put the error code in. I'm going to say it's a success though, right? Because like in those instances, that's an okay success. No records is fine. But I don't want to do something if I get no records. And then, other ones, if we have an error and our found count, then we can say success and it's a 200. And so a 200 typically means everything's working great. And so I would pass that up as my result. And then so on and so forth, just sort of walking through the different types of problems that I might run into. And in this, if we do have an error and it's not one we've accounted for, and we're not on server, do we want to show a dialogue of that? And so there, I've got an error occurred processing the command. This is where we get that clean, it failed. We want the dialogue to show up to the user, and this can be controlled. So this is sort of that FileMaker error section. And then the next one has to do with the next layer up where we're going to handle errors that are coming back up the chain. So this was a top higher level parent script, right? That's calling this find transactions. And then depending on which one it calls, I'm going to take the result. So I need to get the result from those scripts that fired. And I need to take those results and figure out, what type of an error it is, because I'm going to have to, in my parent script, determine what direction I need to go or how I'm going to handle an error that was in the subscript, right? Or in the call chain. And so in this first part, this is handling whether or not we got an error at a FileMaker level, right? So we get our JSON response code 0, and we got a 200, everything's good. We capture the error because it still may be a 401, and we capture any detail if it is there. But this is where I could put like a 401 would be okay, but a 200 in this sense is the only one that's going to clear. And then this is for the script specific ones, right? So if we get a successful status, but we get the 401, then I'm not going to continue with this script, and I'm going to set a result and in a JSON structure, like where I've got a success, but I have an error, I get a found count, and I have a message, the script was finished successfully, so on and so forth. So at this point, it starts to, you can start sort of chasing how complicated you want to handle all of your different errors. And when you start to have multiple different, like a tree, you have multiple branches where it can fail. How do you propagate those all the way back up so that your end script, where does it, when it fails, does it fail? Does it fail at the branch? Does it continue all the way back up to the trunk? Right? Where is it going to stop? Where is it going to, and then how are you going to handle it? When is it necessary to put full brakes on? When is it necessary to show the dialogue and allow the user to cancel out of the process, and so on and so forth? But this was just sort of it, and coming up with sort of like, I know we've done a bunch of different, and I've tried over the years to come up with different ones, but encompassing them into error handling process. But then you get this really verbose, like this is a huge chunk of code, and all we're doing is we're performing a script, and this is to tell us whether or not it's, what our response from that script is. And, so like suddenly these scripts become very verbose with error handling when the actual process, like it's maybe, 10 lines of code, the error handling is occupying like 90% of the script.
Yeah.
And then,
That's
you do
pluses and
continues.
minuses.
Yeah. And then I ran into this, like, as I'm going through this, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Now I've said continue, right? And I'm going to do something else. But now I need to check and do a response if I get an error on that. And then, like you go in and on the script that you're calling, you have all of its error checking. And so it's just sort of start stacking all of these different, I don't know, it gets in the weeds really quickly for evaluating, just a simple find to what when you do get an error and how to handle it in a script that has like different endpoints that you might get to based on whether the error is, just something where it couldn't find a record or the error is the layout doesn't exist kind of thing.